Have you ever looked at your life and realized you are just supporting cast in someone else's play? Worse, you realize you are not even getting paid for the role. To my husband, I was his rustic ornament. I was the frugal wife, driving an old car while he signed million-dollar deals. He loved my simplicity because it made his own glamour shine brighter. He had no idea my simplicity was a uniform. My thriftiness was a test, and he was failing it miserably. My name is Alara Vance. I am 32 years old. I live in a quiet, slightly worn apartment in a suburb of Denver, Colorado, where the loudest sound is usually the hiss of the radiator. This morning, the loudest sound was the click, click, click of my drip coffee maker failing. Again. I sighed, pulled a paperclip from the junk drawer, and bent it into a precise angle. A little jiggle, a satisfying thunk, and the dark liquid began to drip. It is what I do. I fix things. My car, a 2010 Subaru Forester, has over 200,000 miles on it, but it runs perfectly because I change the oil myself and know the sound of a finicky belt. My husband, Julian Vance, does not fix things. He replaces them. Julian is 35 and a rising star at Aperture Capital, a private equity firm that operates with the kind of smiling ruthlessness that defines modern finance. His world is loud. It is the sharp snap of his bespoke suit jacket as he puts it on, the aggressive clack of his Italian leather shoes on our hardwood floor, and the incessant, vibrating hum of his phone. He never looks away from that phone. It is his real spouse. I am just the roommate who organizes his dry cleaning. He finds my world baffling, almost comical. He wraps his disdain in a blanket of affectionate concern, the kind you'd give a child who refuses to take off a silly costume. "Honey," he said just last week, gesturing with his $1,000 watch at my favorite wool coat, the one I have had since college. "Why don't you just buy a new one, this one? It has a lot of personality." He smiled when he said it, but his eyes scanned me, doing a quick, brutal calculation of my worth. The coat is perfectly fine. I patched the lining last winter. His real frustration, however, lies with my refusal to be his accessory. The invitations are endless galas, fundraisers, rooftop mixers where everyone's teeth are blindingly white and their laughter sounds like breaking glass. I always decline. "It's just not for me, Julian," I say. He paced the living room last month, loosening his silk tie, his face flushed. "Who do they think I married? Alara, a nanny. They ask where you are. It's embarrassing." Embarrassing. That was the word he used. I just smile. It is a quiet, neutral expression I have perfected over 3 years. But inside, I open my mental ledger and I write it down. Embarrassing. Nanny. Personality. I do not argue. I do not cry. I go to the kitchen, where I take cheap cuts of beef and slow cook them for 6 hours until they are richer than any steak he buys at the expensive downtown chop houses. I grow herbs on the windowsill, and the smell of basil and thyme fills the quiet air. My simplicity is a refuge, or perhaps, as I am beginning to realize, it is a blind. Yesterday, he came home late, smelling of expensive whiskey and someone else's faint, flowery perfume, a scent too delicate for the dive bars he claims to visit with clients. He tossed his keys into the bowl by the door. "God, I have to go to Chicago this weekend," he announced, already sounding exhausted by the burden of it. "Another hedge fund summit. It is going to be so boring." He sighed, a performance of martyrdom, and headed for the shower, the steam erasing the scent of his infidelity. This morning, while he was in a meeting and my paperclip-repaired coffee was brewing, I gathered the laundry. I am always the one who does the laundry. I am the one who sorts the delicate wool from the sturdy cotton, the one who knows which temperature to use. And there, on the collar of his expensive, custom-tailored white shirt, was the evidence. It was not a blatant, cinematic smear of bright red. It was something far more insidious. A faint, waxy shimmer of expensive, high-gloss nude, the the kind of color that costs $90 a tube and is designed to look like nothing at all, while costing everything. My hands did not shake. I did not throw the shirt against the wall. I did not feel the sting of tears. I felt a cold, quiet click of verification. I took the shirt to the window where the morning light was best. I smoothed the collar flat against the worn laminate of the kitchen counter. I took 3 photos with my phone, checking the focus until the weave of the fabric and the translucent stain were perfectly clear. Then, I went to the kitchen, took a gallon-sized Ziploc bag from the drawer, folded the shirt carefully, and placed it inside. I sealed it, pressing all the air out. I walked it to my closet, behind the old Subaru manuals and my sewing kit, and I hid it. My husband thinks my simple life means I am simple-minded. He has forgotten that to live simply, you must pay attention to every single detail. Julian left for Chicago on Friday morning, kissing me goodbye with a notable lack of enthusiasm, his mind already on his connecting flight. The moment the Subaru's engine faded down the street, I had driven him to the airport. Naturally, to save on parking, the quiet of the apartment shifted. It was no longer a refuge. It was a workstation. I did not weep. I did not pace. I made a cup of tea, using the cheap bags Julian hated, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The laptop is old, just like my car, but its internals are customized. Julian thinks I use it for budgeting and finding recipes. He is half right. First, I logged into our joint bank account. This was the account he'd set up to give me walking around money, a monthly deposit that was both patronizing and controlling. He never checked the statements, only the balance when he was about to transfer more. I, on the other hand, studied it. 3 days ago, a cash withdrawal. $1,500. An odd amount. Too much for a weekend. Too little for anything significant. It was sloppy. It was arrogant. Julian believes I am a technological novice. He set up our family cloud account years ago, a place to dump photos and share documents. He forgot that I was the one who set up the 2-factor authentication, and that the recovery email was mine. I logged in. The Chicago trip folder was conspicuously empty, just a placeholder. But the cloud also syncs his primary devices, including his phone's photo stream and his browser's auto-saved receipts. He had not bothered to disable it. Why would he, Mrs. Simple, would not know where to look? The receipts were the first thread I pulled. A confirmation email from an airline. He flew from Denver to Las Vegas, a hotel booking, a 3-night reservation for a panoramic suite at the Wynn. The name on the reservation was his, but the confirmation email had been forwarded to a secondary address, an address I did not recognize. Then came the photos. They were not hidden, just dumped by the sink. Julian, grinning, his arm draped around a woman who could not have been older than 24. She was platinum blonde, with lips that looked painfully full and a spray tan the color of a new penny. She was laughing, holding a comically large cocktail, and Julian was looking at her with a kind of predatory focus I had not seen directed at me in years. The file names were sequential. They were happy. They were tacky. Her name, I learned from a tagged photo she had apparently taken on his phone, was Cleo. Cleo's digital footprint was not subtle. It was a neon sign. Her Instagram profile was public, a carefully curated temple of aggressive luxury. There she was in Dubai, riding a camel. There she was in Miami, on a yacht. There she was holding up a new Birkin bag. The exact shade of blue he had told me was garish. Her captions were a slurry of emojis and breathless gratitude. My mystery man just knows how to treat a queen. One read, posted 2 days ago. Vegas baby. I scrolled through months of this, a detached archaeologist cataloging the artifacts of my husband's betrayal. The timeline of his boring work trips and her mystery vacations lined up perfectly. I felt a dull, cold ache. But it was not grief. It was the pain of a miscalculation. I had underestimated his recklessness. Then I saw it. A close-up shot of Cleo pouting at a mirror. She was wearing a necklace. It was a delicate, asymmetrical piece of brushed gold, a series of interlocking circles meant to look like water ripples. My breath caught in my chest. I had sketched that design 5 years ago, back when we were dating, back when I still shared my hobbies with him. I had shown it to him, proud of the concept. He had glanced at it and said it was too childish and not really fine jewelry. He had stolen it. He had taken my idea, had it fabricated, and put it around another woman's neck. This was not just infidelity. This was theft. This was desecration. I dug deeper. Julian's corporate American Express was linked to his account for expense reports. He was charging their dinners, their flights, their champagne to Aperture Capital. He was not just cheating on me, he was embezzling. The final piece slotted into place when I checked the shared documents folder, the one he actually used for work. He had saved an email draft, clearly intended for his personal account. It was addressed to Cleo. My blood ran cold as I read it. Just be patient a little longer, baby. The big one is about to hit, when Mrs. Simple finally agrees to invest her little inheritance in my project. We'll be free. We can get out of that dump in Denver and you'll have all the Birkins you want. I closed the laptop. The click of the latch was deafening in the silence. Mrs. Simple, her little inheritance. A sound bubbled up in my throat. A dry, sharp noise that startled me. I was almost laughing. You are probably wondering why I did not scream. Why I did not take that $90 nude lipstick and write liar across his bathroom mirror. You are wondering why I took a photograph, bagged the evidence, and then went about my day. It is because my simple lifestyle, the one my husband finds so quaint and embarrassing, is a lie. It is a uniform. It is the most expensive, carefully constructed piece of theater you can imagine. My name is Alara Vance. That part is true. But it is not my only name. In the world Julian is clawing to get into, the world of high-stakes finance and technology, I am known by two letters A.V. I am A.V., the anonymous founder, CEO, and sole owner of Viridian Dynamics. We are a B Corp, headquartered on the West Coast, specializing in ethical data security, and we are currently valued at just over $10 billion. My parents died in a small plane crash when I was 19. They left me a trust fund that was, to put it mildly, substantial. I was at Stanford, watching kids burn through their parents' money, and the entire culture of Silicon Valley access the roaring Lamborghinis, the private jets, the complete disconnect from reality. It disgusted me. I did not want to be that. So, I built Viridian from my dorm room, fueled by grief and caffeine. I used the trust fund as my seed money, but I built the company on a principle privacy. I would protect data, not sell it. My anonymity became my greatest shield. A.V. was a ghost, a legend in the industry, the faceless brain behind the most secure technology on the market, and Alara Vance. She was just a quiet woman in Denver who supposedly did freelance data analysis. I met Julian 4 years ago at a coffee shop. He was not in tech, he was in finance. He was sharp, driven, and handsome, and he did not know who I was. For the first time in my adult life, I was just a woman. I wanted to see if that could be enough. I wanted to try normal. So I crafted the biggest test of my life, this marriage. I told him the truth, but a slanted version of it. I told him I had a small inheritance from my parents, just enough to be comfortable if I was frugal. I told him I worked from home. He saw the old car, the small apartment, the mended coat, and he bought it completely. He saw a simple woman, not a woman performing simplicity. For 3 years, I have been waiting for him to prove that he loved me, the woman who fixes her own coffee maker, the woman who prefers a book to a gala. I was waiting for him to show me he was not just another vulture, waiting for me to get tired and finally invest my little inheritance with him. He just failed the test. That project he mentioned in the email to Cleo. The one he is so desperate for my money to fund. It is a shell company he registered 6 months ago called Apex Innovations. It has no assets. It has no products. It has one employee, Julian Vance. It is a weapon, designed for one purpose. And here is the part where his stupidity becomes almost poetic. For the last quarter, my company, Viridian Dynamics, has been in sensitive private negotiations to acquire a small but brilliant data analytics firm. It is a friendly takeover. This small firm holds a key patent that Viridian needs, and Aperture Capital Julian's firm is advising us on the deal. Julian, using the confidential information he has access to as an Aperture executive, has set up Apex Innovations to launch a hostile takeover bid on that exact same firm. He thinks he is a genius. His plan is to use my little inheritance as the initial capital, start the hostile bid, drive the price up, and then force Viridian, my own company, to buy him out at a massive profit. He is not just cheating on me with a 24-year-old. He is not just embezzling from his employers. He is, with a breathtaking lack of vision, attempting to sabotage his own wife's $10 billion empire, using her own money to do it. He has mocked me for saving pennies. He laughed at me for fixing my own things. Let us see what he does when he finds out I own the bank. There were no tears. Hysteria is a luxury, a waste of resources. I closed the cloud drive, took a sip of my now cold tea, and opened a new, blank Excel spreadsheet. I named the file J. Vance Liability. I created columns Date, Activity, Evidence Digital, Evidence Physical, and Potential Criminal Charges. The meticulousness was calming. This was not a betrayal. It was a hostile variable that needed to be contained. I made one phone call, not from my personal phone, but from a hardened, encrypted device I keep in my Subaru's glove box for emergencies. There is only one person I trust with my life and my company. Marcus, I said when he answered on the first ring. A.V. His voice was calm, always calm. What is the threat level? Code red, but it is not a server. It is a biological agent. In my house. A pause. Understood. I will be in Denver in 4 hours. Commercial, no private jet, no black car, wear jeans. Meet me at the Bleecker Street Diner at 2 p.m. Come alone. See you at 2. He hung up. Marcus is the Chief Legal Officer and COO of Viridian Dynamics. He's a terrifyingly brilliant ex-DOJ prosecutor who finds corporate law relaxing. He is the only person on Earth who knows A, V, and Alara Vance are the same woman. He runs the day-to-day operations of the empire, leaving me free to play house in Denver. At 2 o'clock, I was in a worn vinyl booth at the diner, a place that smelled of stale coffee and fried onions. Julian would rather die than eat here. Marcus slid in opposite me, looking exactly as requested in worn denim and a nondescript gray hoodie. He looked like just another local. He placed his phone on the table. I did not waste time. I pushed my own laptop, the customized one, across the table. He calls me Mrs. Simple, I said. I showed him everything, the $1,500 cash withdrawal, the win receipts, the photos of Cleo, the Instagram feed, the stolen necklace design, the business plan for Apex Innovations, the email draft. Marcus read for 10 minutes, his expression unchanging, as if he were reviewing a routine contract. When he finished, he looked up, and his eyes were cold steel. He is using Aperture's confidential advisement to Viridian, he stated, not as a question. Yes, I said. He is front-running our acquisition to extort us. He cannot be doing it alone, Marcus said. Aperture's security is tight. Julian is a vice president, but he is not high enough to see the whole board. He has a source. A big one. I agree. Find out who it is, and find out everything about Cleo. I want to know her blood type and her childhood pet's name. Consider it done. Marcus closed the laptop. What is your play? A, V? He wants my little inheritance, I said. I think it is time I finally invest it. Julian came home on Sunday night, the picture of the weary road warrior. He dropped his bag by the door and handed me a small plastic bag. Got you this, he mumbled. It was a cheap snow globe of the Chicago skyline. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. It is lovely, honey, I said, my voice warm. You must be exhausted. How was the summit? Was the food as bad as you feared? Worse. He sighed, collapsing on the sofa. Just so boring. Stale PowerPoint slides for 9 hours a day. I swear. I think I lost brain cells. I brought him a beer, my hand steady. Well, I am glad you are home. I sat across from him, my phone in my lap, recording. Tell me all about it. Did you at least make any good contacts for, what is that project you mentioned? The new one, for 20 minutes. He constructed an elaborate fantasy of keynote speakers and breakout sessions, a tapestry of such mundane, believable lies that I almost admired his craftsmanship. He was a natural con artist. I waited until he had finished his beer. I leaned forward, letting my voice fill with the right amount of hesitant, wifely hope. Julian, I said, I have been doing a lot of thinking while you were gone. Oh yeah, he asked, distracted by his own phone again. That little inheritance from my parents. It is just sitting in a low-yield bond account. It is not much, maybe about $100,000. But with you being so smart about finance, I was wondering if you had any advice on where I could invest it. Something with a better return. He froze. The phone lowered to his lap. His eyes, which had been dull with fatigue, suddenly lit up, a predatory glint I had pretended not to see for 3 years. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Alara, baby, it is funny you should say that. I have not told you this because I did not want to bother you with it, but I have been working on a private venture, a side project. It is called Apex Innovations. He launched into the pitch. It was slick, full of buzzwords: synergy, disruptor, first mover advantage. He was selling me a ghost, a company built on my own stolen information. I nodded, playing the part of the impressed, simple wife. Wow, Julian, that sounds amazing. It is, Alara. It is ground floor. The returns are going to be astronomical, but it is very exclusive. Oh, I said, feigning disappointment. I guess my little bit would not be enough. Then, no, he said, a little too quickly. For you, I could make an exception. I could get you in. He was practically vibrating with the thrill of the con. He had no idea that my simple, outdated phone was patched through to a secure, encrypted line. He had no idea that Marcus, a former federal prosecutor for the Department of Justice, was in a hotel room 2 miles away, listening to and recording every single self-incriminating, fraudulent word. Julian's condescension was my camouflage. His assumption of my incompetence was my greatest weapon. It was time to use it. He had been working frantically from the apartment for 2 days, holed up in our small spare bedroom that he used as an office. He was always on his laptop, a sleek, ridiculously expensive machine provided by Aperture Capital. He was logged into their servers, communicating with his source, orchestrating his little betrayal. I was in the kitchen, brewing a batch of my own kombucha. He despised the smell. He called it my science experiment. I poured a glass of the fizzy, vinegary liquid and walked to the office. Honey, I said, pushing the door open. You have been in here for hours. I thought you might want to... I tripped over the edge of the rug. It was a pathetic, theatrical stumble, one that a child could see through, but Julian was not looking at me. He was looking at the glass of dark liquid as it arced gracefully through the air. It landed directly on the keyboard of his open laptop. There was a horrifying sizzle. The screen flickered, flashed a series of colored bars, and went black. For a full 5 seconds, there was absolute silence. Julian just stared. Then he launched himself out of his chair, roaring, Ilara, what did you do? My God, what did you do? He grabbed the machine, turning it upside down, shaking it as if the kombucha would just fall out. My life is on this everything, my God. You are so clumsy. I am sorry, I am so sorry, Julian, I said, my voice trembling with perfectly feigned horror. I I just tripped. This is not a toy, Ilara. This is a $4,500 piece of equipment. He was frantic, his face pale with sweat. He was not worried about the machine. He was worried about the data, his connection to Cleo, his Apex business plan, his illegal communications. We have to send it to corporate IT, he muttered, pacing. They will charge me a fortune. Damn it. Oh, no, I said, my voice small. Honey, do not do that. They will charge you just to look at it. I know a little shop. Downtown. They fixed my old laptop screen last year for almost nothing. They are really good with water damage. He stopped pacing. He looked at me, his eyes narrowed with contempt, but also with desperation. He could not send this to Aperture IT. They would absolutely find what he was hiding. He was trapped. A little shop, he scoffed. Please, Julian, let me fix this. It was my fault. Let me take it to them. He stared at the dead laptop. He had no choice. Fine, he snapped, thrusting it at me. But if they cannot fix it, Ilara, I swear. I took the laptop, wrapped it carefully in a towel, and drove away in my old Subaru. The little shop I took it to was not little. It was a sterile, windowless digital forensics lab in an office park, staffed by two of Marcus's best technicians. Flown in from San Francisco, I had the cloned hard drive contents within 3 hours. The real machine was unfixable and professionally destroyed. I bought an identical, used model online and had it delivered to the lab. The report from Marcus was delivered to my encrypted device that evening. It was worse than I thought. The deleted messages to Cleo were sickening. Just need the money from the boring wife and we are gone. Tired of pretending to care about her vegetable garden? Ditch her as soon as we land. But the financials were the true prize. Julian was not just planning fraud, he was actively committing it. He was using his position at Aperture to access several dormant client accounts, siphoning small, untraceable amounts, a few thousand here, a few thousand there, and routing them through a complex series of offshore accounts before landing them in the business account for Apex Innovations. He was artificially inflating the value of his shell company using stolen money. When I drove home, I presented Julian with the replacement laptop. They said the motherboard was fried, I explained, but they had a refurbished one just like it. I used our savings. I am so sorry. Julian. He barely looked at me. He just grabbed the new machine and spent an hour anxiously reinstalling his basic software, relieved that his digital life was seemingly restored, unaware that his ghost drive was already being analyzed by lawyers. His panic made him sloppy. He became impatient. He needed my money now to finalize his move before the Viridian acquisition closed. Ilara, he said 2 nights later, his tone falsely kind. About that investment. We need to move. The market is hot right now. Are you in or are you out? I played the nervous wife. I bit my lip. It is a lot of money. Julian, $100,000. It is basically everything my parents left me. It is an investment in us, he said, taking my hands. Do you trust me? Yes, I whispered. Okay, I will do it. The next day, I sat at my old laptop and, with Julian watching over my shoulder, I logged into my inheritance account. I made the wire transfer of $100,000 to Apex Innovations, LLC. His face broke into a grin of pure, unadulterated triumph. He kissed me, a quick, dry peck on the forehead. You will not regret this, baby. You will see. He grabbed his keys. I have to go celebrate this with a client. Big dinner. Do not wait up. He left. I stayed at my laptop, watching the transfer confirmation. Julian thought I had just given him his freedom. He thought I had just bought his girlfriend a new Birkin. He had no idea that I had just given him the rope. That morning, Marcus, acting as legal counsel for Viridian Dynamics, had officially filed a complaint with the FBI and the SEC, citing credible evidence of an insider trading and wire fraud scheme originating from Aperture Capital. the target a shell company called Apex Innovations. The authorities were interested, but they needed one more thing. They needed a direct, undeniable link. They needed the final transaction. That $100,000 transfer was not an investment. It was a marked bill. It was a tracer. It was the final irrefutable piece of evidence, a transaction they were now watching in real time. I had not just given him the rope. I had tied the noose and handed him the end, and he was skipping gleefully toward the gallows. The $100,000 transfer was the final nail. The federal agencies were now building their case, but destroying Julian was no longer enough. He was just a greedy, arrogant fool, a symptom of a much larger disease. The real sickness was at Aperture Capital. He had a source, and Marcus and I were certain it was a significant one. Julian could not have orchestrated this alone. To truly end this, I needed to dismantle the network that enabled him. I needed his partner. I needed Cleo. Marcus's team had a full dossier on her within a day. She was not just a party girl. She was a failed real estate agent with a mountain of debt. Julian was not just her mystery man. He was her lifeline. She spent her mornings at a ridiculously exclusive high-end gym and spa called Pinnacle. A public confrontation at a 5-star restaurant would be messy, emotional. It would give her the power of an audience. I needed her off balance, vulnerable, and focused. I needed her on her territory, but on my terms. That morning, I did something I had not done in 3 years. I went shopping. I walked into a Lululemon store and bought the most expensive, brightly colored yoga set they had. I put my hair in a sleek ponytail, wore designer sunglasses, and drove Julian's new Mercedes, the one he bought himself after my investment to Pinnacle. I paid the exorbitant $300 day pass fee in cash. She was exactly where Marcus said she would be, on a Stairmaster, scrolling through her phone with a look of profound boredom. She was wearing a tiny white outfit that looked more like lingerie than gym attire. I got on the machine next to her. I let the silence stretch for 5 minutes, just the sound of our simulated climbing. "The classes here are terrible, aren't they?" I said, not looking at her. She glanced over, her eyes flicking down at my new clothes, sizing me up. I looked the part, another bored, wealthy suburbanite. "They are a total joke," she said, her voice a nasal sigh. "I only come here for the spa." "Me too," I said. "My husband is always traveling. I have got to do something." "Ugh, tell me about it." She rolled her eyes. "Men, they are just so much work." This was my opening, especially when you are trying to help them with their finances. My husband thinks I am an idiot, but I am the one managing our portfolio. Cleo laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "Right, my guy. He is sweet, but he thinks he is the next Warren Buffett. He has got this little side project, this Apex Innovations thing. He thinks it is his ticket, but honestly, I am the one telling him how to brand it." My blood ran ice cold, but I kept my voice light. "Apex. That is funny. My husband's firm is actually looking at them. Small world." Cleo stopped climbing. She turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "Really, who is your husband?" "Oh, he is just an analyst. But that is not what I wanted to talk to you about. I am actually looking for new investment opportunities myself." Cleo smiled, a hungry, predatory look replacing the boredom. She thought she had found a new mark. "You should invest with my guy. He is getting in on the ground floor of something huge." "I am sure," I said. I stopped my machine and turned to face her. "But I do not invest with amateurs, and I certainly do not invest with liars." Her smile faltered. "Excuse me. I know he told you my name is Alara," I said, my voice dropping, losing all its manufactured warmth. "But did he ever tell you my real name is A.V.?" She just stared, confused. "What, like, the letters?" I took out my phone. It was not my cheap burner. It was the Viridian flagship model that had not even been released yet. I pulled up a single image and held it in front of her face. It was the cover of Forbes from 2 years prior. It showed a figure in silhouette, sitting in a boardroom, a single shaft of light illuminating a woman's hand on the table. The headline read, "The Mind Behind Viridian Can A.V.'s $10 billion ghost change the world." She squinted at it, and then she looked at my hand, holding the phone. On my hand was the distinctive, simple gold ring I always wore, the same one visible in the cover photo's light. Her face, tan and perfect, went the color of ash. I watched her brain make the connections, the frantic, panicked math. You are not... I am not a freelance data analyst, I said. And the little inheritance Julian is so excited about is not $100,000. It is $10 billion, and he just tried to steal from me. Cleo was breathing fast, clutching the rail of the Stairmaster. Oh my God, I did not know. I swear, he told me you were just some quiet housewife. He played us both, I said, putting my phone away. He told me you were a high-level financial analyst. He told you I was a nobody. He has been using my company's confidential data, which is a federal crime. He has been using your face to launder his stolen money, which makes you an accomplice. The SEC is already involved. The FBI is watching. I am not going to prison for him, she hissed, tears of terror in her eyes. That bastard? You do not have to, I said. He is using Aperture data. He is not smart enough to get that himself. He has a source, a partner high up. Who is it? Cleo looked around, terrified. She jumped off the machine and grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the locker room. We cannot talk here. Inside, between the rows of lockers, she finally broke. It is his boss, she whispered, her voice shaking. Richard Donovan, the division head. Donovan is the one feeding him the Viridian data. Why? I asked. What does Donovan get out of it? Cleo let out a sharp, hysterical laugh. Because Donovan is an idiot, too. He is trying to get enough cash to pay off the other founding partner. Why? Because Donovan is sleeping with his wife. He said it was perfect. The whole firm is so rotten. Everyone is cheating on everyone, that nobody would ever notice. I had my answer. It was not just one snake. It was a nest. The entire foundation of Aperture Capital was rotten to the core. Help me, I said, and I will make sure the SEC knows you are a victim, not a co-conspirator. You will walk away. Keep lying, and you will be in a cell right next to him. She nodded frantically. Whatever you want, I will give you whatever you want. Good, I said. Here is what you are going to do. Cleo's testimony was the key. She gave Marcus the exact leverage he needed. Within an hour, an anonymous, highly detailed whistleblower complaint, complete with encrypted emails between Donovan and Julian, was delivered to the private inbox of Aperture Capital's founding partner, the one whose wife was sleeping with Donovan. The resulting explosion was instantaneous. Marcus, a master of timing, waited for the ensuing chaos at Aperture to reach its peak around 11 a.m. the next morning, when the board was in an emergency session and Donovan was being screamed at by lawyers. Then, Viridian Dynamics struck. It was not a quiet withdrawal. We issued a formal press release which hit every major financial newswire simultaneously. It was a masterpiece of cold, corporate brutality. Viridian Dynamics, it read, has officially withdrawn its letter of intent to acquire Target Company, effective immediately. This decision follows a standard due diligence process which revealed significant financial irregularities and potential breaches of fiduciary duty within the advisory channels. The market did not just react, it panicked. Financial irregularities and breaches of fiduciary duty are code words for fraud and insider trading. The Target Company's stock, which had been climbing based on acquisition rumors, collapsed. It lost 80% of its value in under 30 minutes. And Julian's shell company, Apex Innovations, which had no assets, no product, and a valuation based entirely on the premise of this single acquisition, evaporated. It went from being his golden ticket to being a toxic, worthless liability in the time it took to read a headline. My $100,000 investment, the marked money, the final piece of bait. It was gone, vanished into the digital smoke of the worthless company. It was the best $100,000 I had ever spent. I watched the stock ticker on my phone from the kitchen of our humble apartment. I imagined Julian sitting in his office at Aperture, watching the same screen. I imagined the cold sweat, the sick, churning panic as his entire fantasy life dissolved. His first call, I knew, would be to Cleo. I had already taken care of her. Cleo, in exchange for her full cooperation and a sworn affidavit, was currently sitting in first class on a non-extradition flight to Switzerland, her ticket paid for by an anonymous consulting firm. When Julian called her, the phone went straight to a disconnected number. He had been blocked. His second call would be to his boss, his partner in crime. He would call Richard Donovan, frantic, demanding to know what was happening. But Donovan was not taking calls. Donovan was in a soundproof room with Aperture's general counsel, watching his own career and marriage disintegrate in real time. His last, most desperate hope was me, the boring wife, the simpleton, the little inheritance. He must have broken every speed limit getting home. The front door slammed open, the sound echoing in the quiet apartment. "Ilara!" he yelled, his voice cracking with a terror I had never heard before. I was in the living room, calmly taping up a single small cardboard box. "Ilara, thank God." He ran in, his suit jacket rumpled, his eyes wild. He did not even register what I was doing. You have to help me. Something went wrong with the deal. They are trying to screw me. The market is crashing. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip painfully tight. "I need you to transfer the rest of the trust fund. Right now, all of it. We can use it to cover the margins. He stopped. His words died in his throat. His eyes finally focused on the box in my hands. I was not packing my mended coat. I was not packing my books. I was not packing the cheap snow globe from Chicago. The box contained a small clay pot with my windowsill basil. It contained my favorite mug, and sitting right on top was a small bent piece of metal. He was staring at the paperclip I used to fix the coffee machine. Julian's grip on my shoulders loosened. His gaze lifted from the box and swept across the room. He was looking, really looking, for the first time. The apartment was not just tidy, it was sterile. The worn rug he hated was gone. The stacks of books I kept by the sofa had vanished. The faded quilt on the back of the chair, the one my grandmother had made, was gone. All the small, inexpensive, personal items that had made this place a home. My home had been erased. The apartment was just a box, and he was rattling around inside it. "What are you doing, Shell?" he asked. The old pet name sounded foreign, desperate. His confusion was curdling into a dark, hot anger. "What is all this? This is not the time for spring cleaning. We are in serious trouble. Ilara." I gently removed his hands from my shoulders and stepped back, sealing the tape on the small box. "No, Julian," I said. My voice was calm, steady. It did not even echo. The empty room just absorbed it. "You are in serious trouble. I am just cleaning up." He finally saw me. He had looked at me for 3 years and seen a nanny, a simple wife, a boring fixture. He had never seen the woman standing in front of him. I was not wearing my mended coat or an old t-shirt. I was wearing a black silk pantsuit, custom tailored, fitting me with a severe, perfect elegance he had never witnessed. My hair, usually in a loose bun, was pulled back. I was wearing shoes he had never seen. Leather, low-heeled and lethally expensive. "Your Apex project," I said, as if discussing the weather. "It is dead." He flinched, as if I had struck him. "How? How do you know about that? That is confidential. What did you do?" "You have been asking the wrong question for 3 years. Julian." I picked up the box. The question was never, "Why is my wife so simple?" The question should have been, why is my wife with me? I do not have time for your cryptic nonsense. Ilara, he shouted, his voice high and thin. I need that money. The rest of it I need. His phone rang, a shrill, panicked sound that cut through the tension. He snatched it from his pocket, his hands shaking. What? He barked into it. He went pale, not the flush of anger, but a waxy, gray pallor. What do you mean? Frozen. You cannot freeze my account. No, I do not authorize. He stared at the phone. Suspicious activity. What are you talking about? That was an investment. He was listening, his mouth slightly open, a look of numb, idiotic disbelief on his face. He lowered the phone from his ear without ending the call. The bank was freezing everything. His personal accounts, his credit lines. The money he had stolen and the little he had actually earned were all gone, locked away in an administrative vault. They said, he stammered, looking at me, his eyes begging for an answer from the person he had dismissed for years. They said it is all frozen. Yes, I said. That is what happens when you accept a $100,000 wire transfer that has been flagged by the FBI as the final step in a wire fraud and insider trading scheme. They tend to notice. His brain visibly short-circuited. He could not connect FBI with Ilara. He just shook his head. No, you do not know what you are talking about. You are just the nanny. I walked past him toward the door, setting my single box down. You need to leave, Julian. Leave, he said, a hollow laugh escaping him. I am not going anywhere. This is my apartment. Ilara. You cannot kick me out of my own home. I turned and pointed to the kitchen counter. A single, tri-folded piece of paper sat there, right where the coffee maker used to be. It was our lease agreement. He had never read it. He just signed where I told him. He walked over to it, his movements stiff, robotic. He unfolded it. He scanned the legal text, his eyes darting back and forth. He was looking for his name. It was not there. The sole lessee, the only person listed on the agreement, was Ilara Vance. I signed this, I said quietly, from the doorway. Right after we got married, you thought it was beneath you to handle domestic paperwork. You told me to just take care of it. I paused. The lease expires tomorrow. I opened the front door. You should probably call a hotel before your last credit card is declined. Good luck finding a new place to live. Julian lunged for the door, not to attack me, but to block my exit, a wild, desperate animal cornered in a cage. No, you cannot just leave. You are my wife. You owe me. His words were cut short. The door swung open, but it was not me opening it. Marcus was standing there, his face as impassive as granite. He was flanked by two men, both over 6 feet tall, both wearing immaculate dark suits with earpieces. They did not look like security. They looked like federal agents. They had been waiting in the hallway for my signal. Mr. Vance, Marcus said, his voice polite, but with an edge that could cut glass. He stepped aside. The two men stepped into the apartment, positioning themselves between me and Julian. Julian recoiled, his false bravado evaporating instantly. Who the hell are you? He sputtered. Marcus ignored the question. He was holding a thick manila envelope. He extended it toward Julian. You are being served, he said. Julian stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. Served with what I have not done anything. That is a temporary restraining order, Marcus explained, citing credible threats and a history of financial and emotional abuse. It stipulates that you are to remain a minimum of 500 yards away from Ms. Vance, her residence, and her place of business. As Ms. Vance is the sole lessee here and the lease expires tomorrow. You will be escorted from the premises in exactly 10 minutes to retrieve your personal belongings. After that, you will be trespassing. Julian's eyes darted from Marcus to the security, to me. He was looking for a crack, a moment of sympathy. He found none. I picked up my single box. Goodbye, Julian. He did not answer. He just stood there, clutching a restraining order in one hand and the lease agreement in the other, a statue of his own ruin. I walked out of the apartment, and I did not look back. The next morning, Julian was in hell. I know this because his entire life was staked on Aperture Capital. His money was frozen. His mistress was gone. His wife had vanished. His only remaining hope, the last thread he could possibly grasp, was his job. He had to get to the office, to Donovan, to someone, and try to spin this, to salvage some piece of the wreckage. He must have walked into that gleaming marble lobby at 9 a.m., a man on the verge of collapse, trying to straighten his tie and pretend he was not drowning. In the center of the lobby, a massive wall-mounted television was, as always, tuned to Bloomberg. The anchors were discussing breaking news. "A huge story developing this morning in the tech world," one of them said. "Viridian Dynamics, the notoriously private multi-billion-dollar data firm, has just called an emergency press conference for 10 a.m. The speculation is rampant, but our sources say this is the big one, the anonymous founder, the legend known only as AV, is finally going to reveal her identity." Julian would have stopped. He would have watched, a bitter, dismissive sneer on his face. Viridian Dynamics, the company that had just torpedoed his entire future. "Who cares?" he probably muttered. "Just another story of some Silicon Valley weirdo." He was just waiting for the segment to end so he could see the market data. The broadcast cut to a live shot of a podium in San Francisco. It was packed. Hundreds of reporters. The buzz was electric. "We are told she is about to come out," the anchor said. And then, she did. From the side of the stage, a woman walked to the podium. It was not some tech bro in a hoodie. It was a woman in a severe, elegant black silk suit. It was Alara Vance. Julian's world must have stopped. The blood draining from his face, the lobby spinning, the impossible, nonsensical image on the screen. His simple wife. His boring wife. His nanny. Standing at the podium of one of the most powerful companies in the world, but the real twist, the final, public execution, was not my face. It was the chyron, the text crawling across the bottom of the screen. Julian would have read it just as I stepped up to the microphone. The chyron did not say, "AV reveals identity." It read, "Viridian CEO Alara Vance exposes internal fraud scheme linked to Aperture Capital." I leaned into the microphone. My voice was clear and cold, and it broadcast across every trading floor in the world. "Good morning. My name is Alara Vance, and I am the founder and CEO of Viridian Dynamics. For 3 years, I have also been a victim. I called this press conference today to announce that Viridian is fully cooperating with the SEC and the Department of Justice in their investigation into a wide-ranging conspiracy of insider trading, wire fraud, and embezzlement. A conspiracy that originates from our own advisors, Aperture Capital." I was not just divorcing him. I was not just outing him. I was using the full $10 billion weight of my global reputation to personally and publicly annihilate him and the entire rotten firm that had enabled his greed. It was a week later. The press conference had shattered Aperture Capital. Donovan was fired. The founding partner was suing him, and the SEC had frozen the entire firm's assets pending investigation. Julian was, of course, the first one they cut loose. He was radioactive. I, on the other hand, was busy. I was coordinating the legal fallout and finally, publicly, taking the reins of my own company. But there was one last piece of personal business. I had kept the old apartment lease through the end of the month to store a few things. I drove there in my old 2010 Subaru. I was keeping it. I liked it to pick up the last box. As I was locking the car door, he appeared. He looked like a ghost. He was wearing the same suit he had worn a week ago, but now it was deeply wrinkled, stained, and hung on his frame. He had not shaved. He was staying. I knew from Marcus. in a $50 a night motel by the highway. He blocked my path on the sidewalk. His eyes were bloodshot, hollowed out by a combination of rage and total, abject ruin. "Why?" he whispered, his voice a dry rasp. "Why all of this? Ilara, you could have just left. You could have just taken your money and gone. Why destroy me?" I looked at him, really looked at him, for the last time. The anger I had felt was gone. The hurt was gone. All I felt was a kind of cold, clinical pity. "You think this was about the money. Julian, you think this was about Cleo." I set my box down on the hood of the Subaru. "This was about the necklace." He blinked, confused. "What? What necklace?" "The ripple design, the one I sketched when we were first dating, when I still thought you were a good man. I showed it to you. You said it was childish, and then you took it. You stole that little piece of my mind, had it made, and you put it around her neck. You did not just cheat on me, Julian. You looted me. You took the small, private parts of me and gave them away like party favors." He stared, trying to process it. The necklace, I can get it back. I will get it back for you." I almost laughed. "You still do not get it. You never did." I picked up my box. "You mocked me for being simple, Julian. You looked at my life and you thought my simplicity was emptiness. You thought it was a void you could fill with your ambition, your lies. You never once realized that my simplicity was not emptiness. It was restraint." He shook his head, desperate to find an angle. "You cannot do this. The lawyers, the money you sent, that is entrapment. That was your money. I will sue you." "I was wondering if you would get to that." I sighed. This was the last piece. "You were always so worried about my little inheritance, so worried about what you could get from me, but you never bothered to read the paperwork. You were so eager to marry the simple girl with the small trust fund that you signed the prenuptial agreement without even reading the fine print. Your own lawyers from Aperture glanced at it and rubber-stamped it, because they, like you, thought I had nothing worth protecting." A new, colder fear entered his eyes. "That agreement, Julian, is very specific. It states that in the event of proven marital infidelity or criminal activity, all shared assets, any commingled funds, any joint accounts default entirely to the non-violating party." We do not have any joint assets," he stammered. "Just that stupid house account." "Exactly," I said. "The one you used for my allowance. And that $100,000, the money I invested in Apex. Where do you think that came from, Julian? My private trust, my corporate accounts? No, I transferred it, legally, from our joint checking account." The color drained from his face as the final, perfect calculation slotted into place. "You did not just lose my money, Julian," I said. "You fraudulently solicited an investment. You took your own share of our joint funds and sank it into a criminal enterprise. And the prenup you signed gives me the sole legal claim to the entire transaction. You did not just give me the rope. You bought it for me, with your own money." A black sedan, quiet and sleek, pulled up to the curb. Marcus was in the back seat. He did not look at Julian. He simply opened the door for me. I put my box inside and turned one last time. "You were right about one thing, though," I said, as I slid into the car. "That old coat I wore, it really did have personality." It was a constant reminder to me that almost everything, no matter how worn out or broken it seems, can be repaired. I pulled the door shut, the sound a solid, definitive thunk. "Except you." I left him on the sidewalk, a simple man, completely destroyed by his own complex, greedy world. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Please drop a comment below and let us all know where you are listening from and share your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give us some extra support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.